All right. So yeah, as Gabe mentioned, we get to this last section of this last chapter, which is pretty dark, and so it's called Night Attack, and so at the beginning we kind of get this scene with this little girl, and she's, she's basically praying, and then her mom interrupts her and says it's time for supper, and so she runs on in home, and then we get another scene, and we go back to Thorfinn and Askeladd and their whole crew, and they're having some struggles in the winter here, and they need to basically like settle down and just wait out the winter because they can't travel anymore, because you can see like the wheels in the one scene, like the wheels all like the snow's too high for the wheels to go, and they can't dig it out, and yes, they just need to pack it up, camp it up, and get through the winter, and then they can move on later on. And there's this I think he says something like, Askeladd says, "What has you so unsettled? Raiding and pillaging is the time-honored tradition of the Nordic people." And so I think he thinks that his troops are kind of restless and they haven't got to do any Viking Danish type things for raiding or pillaging. And so he's like, we need to let them blow off some steam. And there's also like they're running out of food as well, and so they need to replenish their food stores. And so what better way to do that than to go raid and pillage a village that is just
that's classic Viking style. That's what they do. We don't have resources, let's go claim them.
Right.
With the strength of my hand, I will claim these resources as mine. Very, very human of them.
Right. And then we go back to the scene where Gabe's quote is from, where we have the family doing the prayer, and then he's talking about why we have to pray, and the dad's explaining all these different things, and they're talking about some stuff about like the new world, and then the little girl that we had from at the beginning of the chapter, she says that she has to go pee, and so but she actually doesn't. She just wants to go outside, because we find out that she has this ring, and she stole it from, I guess she was at a market or something, and she saw it, and she just took it. And she's talking about, the devil must have tempted me, and we want to bring in another Lord of the Rings quote. It's like the ring is very precious to her. She's like looking at it and like holding it, and
So you're basically saying she's going, my precious.
Yeah, she's basically Gollum. I'm just gonna say this little girl's name is Gollum. That's what I'm gonna call her.
Little Gollum girl.
Right. But yeah, I mean, she said, God is watching my sins even now, and I'll be the only one in the family who doesn't go to heaven. And so she's very sad about this. And so she's like, I'm going to take this ring off, and going to throw it. And then she acts like she's going to throw it, but then she like doesn't quite do it. And then she says, it's even beautiful on my left hand. So I just think it's funny. Like she like understands that she did a wrong thing, but like there's just something inside of her. Like she can't like give it up. So yeah, I mean, I feel like that's something that we can all empathize with. Like,
for sure.
Like there's things in your life, like, you shouldn't be doing that, but like there's just like a piece of you is like, but I don't really want to stop doing that. I'd rather just not, you know what I mean? Like I'd rather just stay in my sin.
Yeah, people. Okay, so that gives me thoughts. Okay, so one, people enjoy being comfortable in their sins, and I watched this, one of those, I forget which movie it was. It's one of those Christian movies, and it was like, they're all kind of similar. And this one, there was a good quote though, like, this guy has all this stuff, and then he's being called out by this older woman, and she's like, the devil makes your cage really comfortable, and that's why you are the way that you are. And then with her, I had another good thought. If it comes back to me, it was good too. But I've forgotten already. I'm tired. I've been Tyler has been over. My other friend has been over because I was painting my laundry room, and I was going to be done yesterday. However, I made a mistake, everybody. I painted the trim the wrong color and earned myself an extra 5 hours of work this week. So it's been yay. But you know what? It looks really nice now that it's done in the correct color, and I can rest easy knowing that I worked my butt off to get it done. So yeah, so that's why I'm tired.
All good.
So,
it's also late too, so
it is. Yep.
These podcasts tend to go late. But yeah, we'll conclude here. We're basically at the very end of the story here, and basically this little girl, she sees the Nordic soldiers coming up to her house, and these soldiers bang down the door. The monk guy tries to warn the town, but they punch him in the face and knock him out. And yeah, they basically round up all the people, and they this one guy like just completely like decks this guy's wife. Which is like, that's cool. That's a bit unnecessary. But you know, that's what they do. They're just gonna wipe some people out. And so they round them all up. They get all the food, and they're like, it's not really a lot of food. He says Askeladd says hardly enough for warriors numbering 400. Numbering 4 and 100. So just over 100 soldiers, I think. And yeah, so they basically just gather them all up, and I'll just kind of read these last few sections here, because this is Askeladd talking. It's just like cold-blooded. He said there would be no food for them if we left them alive, and leaving them alive means supervising them. Even if a single person escapes and spreads the word that the enemy is settling in this territory, we'll be surrounded at once, and we can't have that. And then he says, how's the hole coming? And there's these soldiers digging they're digging a mass grave, and they say big enough for 62 by now, I reckon. And Conehead Ragnar says, Askeladd, these people are devout Christians. And he says, and what of it? This is what is best for His Highness. Anyone else got a question? No? Good. In that case, get started. And
cold-blooded.
The slaughter commences. What did they say? How many people were there? There was
in the 60s. 62 in all, 24 of them kids.
Right.
So almost half of these people were children under like the age of 18, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I was talking to Gabe, I was like, I like Askeladd as a character, or like just like seeing what he does, but like his moral compass is like completely whack. And
I said it is pointing straight south.
Yes.
The sin in Askeladd is the pride. It's all about him. It's all about the ends justify the means. He's got an end goal. He's going to push it. He's going to get there anyway. Very Machiavellian. I'm going to step on who I need to step on to get my leg up on the next situation.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, then at the very end of this section here, we have the little girl, because she just basically witnessed her entire village and her family getting slaughtered. And yeah, she says,
and you're calling him Gollum Girl, and she doesn't even know that, but she's probably upset about it.
I'm sorry.
My precious.
Well, now you make me feel bad.
I'm sorry. But
yeah,
now I'm going to call her Gollum Girl, too. Continue.
She's like reflecting on what just happened. And she says, she basically says, like, I never thought that there could be such evil men in the world, so bold and daring and unafraid of your judgment. And she says, my heart is racing the way it did when I stole this ring. And I was trying to think, like, what's the interpretation of that phrase? Like, her heart was racing the way it did when I stole this ring. Because when she stole the ring, she was in a state of sin, and like her witnessing this other state of sin is like a similar kind of experience. Is that kind of how you're maybe interpreting it?
So here's where my mind went, because I'm watching The Last of Us to get ready for the podcast that I'm going to do as quarantine quartermaster. And at the end of like the first episode, they talk about a character becoming activated by the death of another character. Which is the opposite of the way a character acts earlier, where they see death and they're repulsed by it. And so in this thing, like she, like, yeah, it's kind of like tied to sin. Like her heart is racing, and that means the emotions are running high. She's like, I'm going to steal it. And then she rolls a D20 and, on her sleight of hand check, and she gets the ring, and she's very excited about it. And then I can't tell if she's, after all, my heart went racing when everyone was murdered. So, like, if you look at, from a psychological standpoint, stimulus response, the stimulus is everyone getting murdered and her heart was racing. So is she being activated by watching all this murder? That's kind of where my thought went. She said, yeah. I just read you the quote. So
right. So you're maybe saying she's gonna go deeper into her sin, like that's gonna make her more cold.
Yeah, or like just not afraid of violence. Maybe
right.
Drawn towards violence. Maybe willing to do it herself instead.
Maybe she's gonna be like chasing after that feeling again.
Yep. Because that's part of sin, is like it gets you hooked. You become a slave to sin, right? And you kind of seek it out, and you want it to rule your life.
Yeah.
And you'll notice that, like in the last page, second to last frame, she's got the ring on.
Yep.
So, is that like a sign that she's living in sin and she's kind of committing to like that way of life? I think it kind of, well, I mean, there's no point in returning it now because everyone's dead.
Right.
And she's the sole surviving member, and she's all alone out in the snow. I have a feeling she's going to survive. I feel like she'll become a character down the line that'll revisit the storyline at some point.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I would like to see that.
Yeah, like what will she become like before
right.
she like re-enters, or do we follow her? That'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned like she can't give the ring back, and that almost is kind of like she can't have a moment of saying like, I'm sorry, I want to return this ring. Now she doesn't have the option to do that. So she can't even have like the opportunity to like be forgiven for her action. So like she just has to live with, I stole this ring and now everyone's dead and now I still have this ring. And the ring is also like a reminder of this event as well. She's going to see the ring and she's going to know like, I stole this ring from this person in this stall at the stores, at the shops, and that person's no longer here anymore.